Oh yes, indeed. All black everything. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Tell a friend. We back, we back, we back. We've been lied to slash. Did you know? I'm back with some, information, important information. Just sharing the knowledge. Um, this particular series we gonna go into. We all here to talk about fake news. This fake news that. This is a true depiction of what really goes on in these newsrooms with the fake news, with the career propagandists. And I don't know if you know that there is a such thing as a propaganda writer, but I came across some stuff on YouTube. We're gonna just listen to the audio, watch how these former CIA members and news reporters break it down for us, and just fake news that's real, that's really fake, but it's a real thing. Here you go. Take a listen.
Berglund was the Reuters reporter who filed the story from Zambia.
Years later, I discovered that a little CIA misinformation expert had sat in the U.S. Embassy in Lusaka and had composed that communique, and it bore absolutely no relationship at all to truth.
No relationship.
You've got to remember at that stage, during a war, you're working under incredible pressure. I worked for 4 months without a day off for 16 hours a day. And all that was wanted was a flow of information. I mean, I'd done the same in the Middle East war. I was based in Damascus. In the first week of the war in Damascus, I wiped out the Israeli Air Force 3 times over with official statements.
Reuters, with its headquarters here on London's Fleet Street, is one of the world's largest news agencies. Its international bureaus provide many newspapers with their only source of news from far parts of the globe.
Well, I mean, with hindsight, some of the official statements from the side I was reporting, and I stress from the side I was reporting, but also from the side that people in Luanda with the MPLA were reporting, clearly most of those statements were completely false.
Completely.
The CIA man in Zambia soon came up with an even better story.
That's how they get you to.
He had some Cuban soldiers raping some young Angolan girls. Then there was a battle, and he had that Cuban unit cut off and captured. And then he had the Cuban women, the victims, identifying the rapists.
None of this.
And then there was a trial, and they were convicted. And then he had them executed by a firing squad of the women who had supposedly been violated, with photographs of young African women with weapons shooting down these Cubans. There had never been a rape.
Not one.
There had never been the military action. The Cubans had never been captured. It was all fiction.
All of it.
Fiction, maybe, but it showed up on the front page of papers like the Toronto Star. The Toronto Globe and Mail also ran the story, and its headline attributed it to Angolan guerrillas. Many other Canadian newspapers in cities like Winnipeg, Montreal, and Halifax picked up the story.
Basically, and to put it very crudely, you can publish any old crap you like, and it will get newspaper room.
Anything you like.
But despite the best efforts of the CIA, the armies it supported didn't stand much of a chance once Cuban soldiers showed up. The force led by the man who'd been on the CIA payroll, Holden Roberto, was wiped out. And UNITA and the South Africans made a hasty retreat. Back in Washington, Congress didn't want another Vietnam and voted against spending any more money in Angola. More recently, the CIA has found work for its skilled writers in Central America, particularly in the campaign against the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. First, the arms flow story. According to President Reagan, Nicaragua supplied guns to left-wing guerrillas in neighboring El Salvador.
The Sandinista dictatorship of Nicaragua, with full Cuban Soviet bloc support, not only persecutes its people, the church, and denies a free press, but arms and provides bases for communist terrorists attacking neighboring states.
David McMichael was the CIA's senior analyst on Nicaragua. He was asked to write a report on the arms flow, but when he looked at the evidence, it didn't support Reagan's claims.
The argument that we're dealing with here is, do these arms come through or from Nicaragua with the complicity of the Nicaraguan government? And the evidence does not sustain that.
Does not.
In 1981, the CIA asked McMichael for a report on the Nicaraguan press, opposition, and church.
And my conclusion was that, there was significant space for these groups to operate, but that they were in no danger of suppression or disappearance. Compared to any other Central American country, Nicaragua has by far the liveliest opposition press and media. Over 2/3, for example, of the 40-odd radio stations in the country are still privately owned and generally speak their mind.
When McMichael spoke his mind, the CIA didn't like it. He was fired. But after 4 years of fighting, now the Nicaraguan government has suspended many freedoms. In the world's newsrooms, the CIA efforts at disinformation continue to turn up. In 1982, reporters were shown photographs of what the CIA said were Soviet bases in Nicaragua, identifiable by their Soviet-styled obstacle courses, training areas, and guns.
I used to laugh and say, look at that Soviet-style baseball diamond over there, This is almost foolish, really, to talk about this. First of all, they're not Soviet military bases. That's the whole point. The second is that a barracks is a barracks. An obstacle course is an obstacle course.
The Soviet freighter Bakuriani pulled into the Nicaraguan port of Corinto today, carrying a mystery cargo which could lead to a showdown between the Sandinista.
Just over a year ago, on the day President Reagan was reelected, his administration came up with another Nicaragua story. This one had to do with Soviet MiG fighters, which Washington said had been shipped to Nicaragua in some mysterious crates detected by satellite surveillance. The result was more headlines. But as the story developed, doubts began to emerge.
Ronald Reagan had a warning today for Nicaragua and for the Soviet Union. Reagan said the U.S. still cannot confirm reports that Nicaragua has received a shipment of MiG-21 jets. But he said if the reports turn out to be true, the U.S. would take a very dim view. The Nicaraguan government has denied that crates taken off a Soviet freighter today contain any warplanes. And it's accused Reagan of trying to whip up an invasion fever.
By week's end, U.S. officials were saying there weren't any MiGs after all.
Fueled over Nicaragua.
It's the usual thing. The charge makes the headlines. The retraction makes the inside pages. 8 or 10 days later, it's revealed, well, MiGs weren't on the way, but that's no longer a headline. So what one is left with is the overall impression from the screaming headlines of the week earlier that Nicaragua continues to represent this enormous danger to the security of the United States.
Never happened.
This nation of 3 million impoverished souls, half of whom are under the age of 15,
Come on.
Well, I would say people are very silly if they believe everything that newspapers tell them. And I think probably anybody who buys a newspaper needs a course on how to read newspapers.
You need that course. Because you got to learn how to decipher reality from fiction, made up, make believe, Hollywood stuff. This is real now. More to come. All Black Everything, think it's right. Big James Mini Streams. Like you, share, subscribe, thumbs up, like you hitchhiking. Let's go. So next time you hear the fake news thing, go ahead and do your own research. It's a lot of fake news that's real. Really fake. Peace and love, y'all. All Black Everything, think it's black. Let's go. We've been lied to / did you know is the new thing.